The vision for AB 988 was clear. 988 was supposed to become a true alternative to 911 for people experiencing behavioral health crises, a system where Californians would have someone to call, someone to come, and somewhere to go. Unfortunately, nearly 4 years after the passage of AB 988, California is still far from that vision. To understand where implementation has faltered, we can follow the three same pillars. First, someone to call. California's 988 call center network is still operating far below what was envisioned in AB 988 as a result of systemic underfunding. For example, California's in-state answer rate for phone calls is approximately 85%, but for text and chat, answer rates remain dramatically lower, around 42%. Text and chat are often the preferred entry point for young people, LGBTQ+ individuals, and individuals who are scared to make a phone call. But the disparity between calls and text and chat reflects a larger implementation problem. California has continued to fund 988 based largely on historical call center capacity instead of how people are actually accessing crisis services today. Just last week, DHCS stated that its funding methodology largely looks backwards at prior call volume and prior funding levels. The result is predictable. Call centers are being asked to adapt to rapidly changing demand without the resources needed to modernize and expand their services. And the consequences are visible in the data. Since the passage of AB 988, 2 California call centers have closed, in part because they did not have the financial support necessary to support successful transition to the expanded 988 model. At a time when we should be expanding capacity, California is instead losing it. Second, someone to come. AB 988 was never intended to stop at a phone call. The promise was that when appropriate, 988 could dispatch behavioral health response instead of law enforcement. But years after AB 988 was signed, there has still been no meaningful statewide integration between 988 and mobile crisis teams. AB 988 explicitly allows for the 988 surcharge to fund mobile crisis teams connected to the 988 system, yet none of that funding has gone towards mobile crisis teams. At the same time, the administration is proposing to make the statewide Medi-Cal mobile crisis benefit optional for counties. If that proposal moves forward, California will fall even farther away from the core vision of AB 988 than we are today. Third, somewhere to go. Without integrated mobile crisis response, we cannot meaningfully talk about crisis stabilization, diversion from emergency rooms, or reducing incarceration. And finally, interoperability. One of the most important goals of AB 988 was reducing unnecessary law enforcement involvement in behavioral health crises. Yet today, there is still no meaningful statewide diversion infrastructure between 911 and 988. In most cases, transfers still rely on dispatchers manually calling one another. That is not transformation, but the same system we had before AB 988 passed. Meanwhile, local communities are proving that better models are possible. The San Ramon Valley Fire District modified its local 911 scripting to identify behavioral health crises and transfer appropriate calls to 988. They have reported reductions in hospitalization, incarceration, alongside improved access to care. The innovation is happening locally, but it should be led by the state. At this point, stakeholders are left asking a very difficult question. How has California fallen so far behind on progress of a federally mandated program with dedicated funding, broad stakeholder support, and overwhelming public need? From the outside, it appears there have been critical errors in prioritization, governance, budgeting, and implementation strategy. My hope is that after today's hearing, we'll have the answers to move forward and deliver on the behavioral health crisis response system that California was promised. Thank you.